everyone, and bonjour. Today my video is gonna be a little different. So I went to Disneyland Paris about a month or so ago for the first time, and I took a couple videos, but I didn't take a whole lot of videos. So I show off some of my clips and talk about my experience at Disneyland Paris, and we also went to Bordeaux for the weekend as well. This was a really quick trip for me. It was from a Wednesday night to a went home Sunday. This is the third time I've been to France, so I feel like I've gotten to come up with some tips and things that I've learned along the way. Traveling, especially to a different country, can be scary, and for me, as someone who likes to plan ahead and always know what I'm getting into, I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about my experience, and hopefully if you are going to go to Paris sometime soon, or even Disneyland Paris, some of these tips might help you out. So first off, I wanted to say that this was the first time I've ever flown alone this long of a distance to another country. So I've flown alone many times. I love flying. I know traveling like the back of my hand. It's like my thing. But this was my first time traveling like across seas by myself on it was like an 8-ish hour flight for me. So first time by myself. So I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of scared, and I was very particular about the flight I wanted to take. So I wanted to do a nonstop flight, which luckily I was able to do that. I flew with Delta, great experience. My flight to Paris was to Charles De Gaulle Airport. It was a pretty smooth flight. I do have a little video about the food I had. The food flying too was not the best. I think it was like a pasta with zucchini. I don't love zucchini. It wasn't that great. However, it did come with like a brownie. That was pretty good. Got some free wine. This was a red-eye flight, so it was at like 8 o'clock at night. I was able to try to sleep. Didn't really happen. I got I feel like 15 minutes off and on. But we were landing at like 9 in the morning. So the big difference about this trip is that I was traveling with my parents. However, they were flying in from a different area, so I had to meet them at the airport. So this is where my research for this trip did not help too much, because I was flying into Charles de Gaulle, they were also flying into Charles de Gaulle, and I was trying to figure out how we were going to meet up. So our flights were about 30 minutes off. I actually landed first at like 8:30 or so in the morning, and then they landed at like 9 in the morning. And from the research I was doing, Charles de Gaulle is a massive airport. I have been there before, but again, this was the first time I went by myself. So the area I flew into was actually very familiar to me. I went to Paris a couple years ago, and this was the same exact area that we flew into. So like, I actually kind of had an idea where I was, but I was trying to find my parents who flew with a different airline, so they landed at a completely different part of the airport. It seemed from my research that from the different like letters of the airport, you could travel to them. However, I think you can really only do that if you are there for a layover and you are transferring to a different plane. Now, since I arrived in Paris and I was leaving Paris, I don't think I could have done that. I will say I talked to 2 employees at the Charles de Gaulle Airport, and they were both so nice. They were very helpful. However, I think there was just like a little bit of miscommunication, because like one lady I talked to right before passport control, I was like, hey, my parents were arriving at this gate, should they come out here? And she was like, yes. And the sign clearly did say that. However, that's definitely not what happened. So all in all, what happened is I went through passport control by myself. It was very easy. There was no line at the side of the airport I was. All you have to do when you land is follow all the signs. I will say the Charles de Gaulle Airport, I think, is very clear in directions and with English. And a lot of it is like following letters and then like following like a passport sign. But yeah, there was no line for the part of the airport I was at, and all I got to do is like, people will direct you. All I got to do is give them your passport, and that's it. Very easy. My parents, however, apparently they had a very long line, and they were just kind of pushed into this section of passport control at the other side of the airport. the other side of the airport. I guarantee you it was. But yeah, so then I went through, and then again, like I said, I had an idea of where I was, but I was still trying to find them, and it was just very confusing. I won't lie, it was quite a stressful environment for just a little bit, but it was okay. I did end up finding them. I did want to add, so when you land at Charles de Gaulle, you go through passport control, and then that's when you go and get your luggage. So I was waiting in the luggage area for a little bit. Then that's when I realized that I'm actually at the complete opposite side of the airport as them, so they were not going to be there. So I actually had to leave the baggage control area to then go and find them. So there is, after you pick up your luggage, some people do have to go through like baggage check. I've never had to do this. There is a very clear line of people who are doing like a baggage check, but there is like some security standing there that ask you where you flew in from. And I said I flew in from Atlanta, and they were like, you can keep going. That's all I know in regards to that. So then I was able to exit, and I was in the main part of the airport. And I will say this whole trip in Paris, I only used like 4G data and paid for cell service one of those days. The rest of the trip, I was able to utilize Wi-Fi. So this specific day, the airport had Wi-Fi. So I was able to call my mom. I was able to utilize that the whole time. So I don't love trying to pay extra fees. So whenever, it was very helpful that almost everywhere I went had Wi-Fi, and I didn't have to do that. So then that's when I found out, you know, I was at like B and she was at like H or something, and I had to walk the entire airport. I walked past the train station there, and I found my mom, and all was well. And that was my experience flying alone into Charles de Gaulle Airport. But I will say, it, like looking back, it wasn't that bad. Just follow the signs, go through passport control, and then you get your luggage, and then there you are. And then at that point, it's getting an Uber, which is what we did, or a taxi, or other kind of transportation service. And they also have the train station there as well. My dad actually had to split from us at that point, so he actually had to take the train to get to where he was going. So we were getting an Uber to go to Disneyland Paris. All right, so I met up with my mom, and we got our Uber to go to Disneyland Paris. So Disneyland Paris is not that far from Paris, and specifically Charles de Gaulle Airport. I would say it was probably about 30-40 minutes. And it wasn't a bad Uber drive, very easy. We were taking our Uber to our hotel. We were staying at the Moxie at Val D'Europe. The Val D'Europe was that train station that we utilized. So that's where we were, and I gotta say it was a really great location for Disneyland Paris. I think there's lots of other hotels in that area, but we specifically stayed at the Moxie, which that's the first time I've stayed at a Moxie, and it was so cool. It was very kind of hipster vibes, and it was just decorated really cool. They had great music playing. At one point they were playing the movie Wicked soundtrack, which was, I was so happy. But it was such a great experience. They also had like a welcome cocktail, which was free. I don't know if that's because we were like a Marriott Rewards member, or if everyone gets it. Probably because we were a Rewards member, but we could get it with alcohol or without alcohol. So that was pretty cool. We chose to get that at night when we came back from the park. But just to kind of preface again, my mom and I both flew in. It was probably about 10 a.m. at this point, and we were going to go straight to Disneyland Paris. So that's how our day was going to go. We both didn't get a lot of sleep, and we were going to Disneyland Paris. But I'll get back to that later. But anyway, we stayed at that Moxie, and it was a great experience. I enjoyed it. We dropped off our stuff, and then we were on our way to Disneyland Paris. So to get to Disneyland Paris, so essentially Disneyland Paris is kind of like a circle, and it's like inside of the circle. So we were like staying like right outside of the circle. It was just one train stop away. And I will say this was the first time that I had used the train service in France. I have used it in England before, so experience. And excuse me, I was kind of nervous about using it in France, but we specifically only used it outside of Paris. And honestly, I had a great experience. every time we used it. It was very easy and smooth. So our hotel was about like a 5-minute walk to the train station, which was the Val D'Europe train station. We walked in and we got our little card, which at a kiosk, we didn't talk to a person the whole time. We went to the kiosk and we each bought a card, which was probably about $2. And then we bought a to and from ticket to Disneyland Paris. I think all in all, it was probably $10 for both of us, probably less honestly, but it was for the card and the tickets. If you already previously had a card, you wouldn't have to buy the card again. That's a tip that I need to remember for whenever I go back to Paris. I need to find that card and use it. Anyway, this was a very small train station, so we got our tickets. We went through you scanned it, you went through, and then there was like 2 sides to it. That's where we were a little unsure. However, this is definitely a very common place for people to stay going to Disneyland Paris. And I started seeing people wearing Disney clothes in like many years. So that made me be like, okay, I know where I'm going. We're in the right spot. So like we went to the right side to then go to Disneyland Paris. So we stood outside, waited like 5 minutes for the next train. And like I said, it was very reassuring to know we were in the right spot because there were several other people with many ears and like a Disney jacket. And then the train came and it was actually a very nice train. It had like, you walked in and then there was like stairs going under. There was a little TV letting you know where you were. And so we were just on that train for one stop. So we got on and then we got off exactly on the next stop. So we got off and then you're at the Mont-Laval train station, which is the Disneyland Paris train station, which does have like the more localized train system, which we just took, but they also have the bigger train system as well, which is what we utilized the next day. So yeah, we arrived at the Disneyland Paris train station and walked outside, and there you are. It's Disneyland Paris. I cannot tell you how easy that was, and I've had so many people tell me, and I've done the research, that going to Disneyland Paris by train, it's so easy. It is. It's so easy. You get off the train station and you're literally there. So you get out and then there's security. There was no lines for security. I would probably say it was about 11 a.m. at this point. We went through security and then here's a little clip of what it looks like. I will say, so Disneyland Paris is going through a lot of construction right now. So there's Disneyland Paris to the right and then Walt Disney Studios to the left. However, that will be changing to Disney Adventure World soon. And that park specifically, so much construction, there's not a lot to even do there. So for this day, we, I think, spent about $100 or so for a one-day ticket to go to both parks. Pretty insane, but it makes sense because specifically I would not pay a one-day ticket just to go to Walt Disney Studios right now. Not worth it at all. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But then we went straight to Disneyland Paris. So I will say again, this was both my mom and I's first time to Disneyland Paris. I did not take a lot of videos. I really wanted to like soak it in and enjoy the experience. I had always been told that Disneyland Paris is like the prettiest Disney theme park, and I would agree. It was very beautiful, but we were just like soaking in the environment and the magic, and I'm happy we did that. But yeah, so we took some pictures at so Disneyland Paris, the entrance is through a hotel. So the entrance is the Disneyland Paris Hotel, which is very similar, kind of almost to the kind of Grand Floridian vibes-ish, but definitely way more pink. Very beautiful. We did actually go inside of it later in the day. Very, very pretty. But you walk under the hotel to get into the park. So you walked under the hotel and they had like the ticket stalls, and then you go through. And then what was interesting about this park is that like there was kind of like 2 entrances in a way. So you walk in and you don't see the castle yet. There's like some buildings to kind of prepare you, I guess, to show you that reveal. And because then there was like another like cover you would go under, and then it's like, oh, there's Main Street USA, and then there's the castle. So we made it into Disneyland Paris. We were on Main Street. We got to see the castle. I will say something very unique about Disneyland Paris. So first off, I also didn't mention, this was early March. It was so cold. It was also kind of wet, like it was sprinkling on and off today. And I'm not mad about the weather we had because it was supposed to rain even more and it didn't. It kind of only rained once, but it was very cold. So we had jackets on, I had gloves on the whole time. It was quite cold. So when you think about that being a common weather for France, what's very cool is they have Main Street USA, and then to the right and left, there was like an indoor version of Main Street USA. So that was very cool because if it was raining or, you know, it's cold, you don't have to just be outside. And there was a nice like indoor section, which was very, very cool. I feel like, you know, Florida, it rains quite a bit, so that would have been smart. But it was still very cool. So like you have the shops on Main Street and there was entrances on both sides to get to all of these stores. So it was very, very cool. So yeah, we took it easy that day, honestly. There was a couple things that was on our like must-dos. And I think we were able to do all of them, but we really just wanted to take it easy and soak it all in. Like I said, they're doing a lot of construction on both of these parks, so there was several things closed or not even open. So one in particular was Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, which I was kind of sad. I heard that's one of the best versions of Big Thunder Mountain, and currently it's closed in Florida, so you can't even ride it. But it was closed, but it was okay. So the first thing we did is we went to Phantom Manor because that was on our list, but Phantom Manor is their version of Haunted Mansion. So this was a very cool version of Haunted Mansion. It's more of kind of almost Phantom of the Opera vibes, like he's specifically kind of like the villain of the storyline, and you see him several times. And the house is very beautiful. It's definitely a different look to it. What was very different, a big difference about Disneyland Paris, is they had so many more character meet and greets. Like that was definitely more thing there than it is, at least that I've experienced in Florida. I know Disneyland in California does a lot more like characters, but they had a bunch of rare characters and unique spots. So in this video of when we went to Phantom Manor, they actually had like a mystery character meet and greet, which I was very curious about, which is right in front of Phantom Manor. And at that time they were doing it, and it was Mickey Mouse in his like Halloween outfit. So I just thought that was super, super cool. But yeah, so we rode Phantom Manor. It was very beautiful. There was no line. Honestly, the parks were pretty not busy the whole time. Again, granted, this was around noon, and this side of the park was like not busy all day. I will say at this point too, one big difference that we noticed with the rides at Disneyland Paris, this might have just been us, but they were so dark. Like dark as in like we could barely see inside. So like Phantom Manor, it just seemed like so much darker inside. Like there was definitely points where like we couldn't see where we were walking, and like it really helped the vibe. But we experienced that also on Pirates of the Caribbean and I think Space Mountain also. It was just so dark. It was crazy. But yeah, Phantom Manor was fantastic. The animatronics were really great. Definitely really enjoyed it. And then after that we made our way, we were again just like strolling through the park. I will say I feel like the park is very spacious. There was so much room to move, and there was just no people, which is not like that in Florida, not everywhere anyway. But yeah, so we were just walking through the park. I saw this beautiful section of right next to Pirates with like the Peter Pan Neverland with Skull Rock area and the pirate ship. It was very, very cool. And then we made our way to Pirates. Saw it was like a 10-15 minute wait, so we rode it. I will say I think this is probably one of my favorite version of Pirates of the Caribbean. There was several favorites at this whole park that I enjoyed, but I really did enjoy Pirates. It was slightly longer, I feel like. It kind of had a different beginning sequence to the ride that I really enjoyed, and then the rest of the ride was pretty much the same. So after that, it was time for a snack. because again, we landed at like 9 in the morning. We were awake. At that point, I don't think we ate anything except for airplane food. So we got our first snack, which, excuse my pronunciation, I think it's called bitterballen. So this was some like fried dough, or it's more like a fried ball. One of them was filled with cheese and one of them was filled with beef. So at this point we got the bitterballen. I also got an Americano, and then my mom got a hot chocolate. You'll see a trend here. She got hot chocolate literally every time. And again, it was very cold and wet, so this hot drink was needed, as well as the bitterballens were also very hot. I think I almost burnt my tongue on the first bite I had. But I thought this was a very unique snack. I will add here too that I was a little disappointed in the snacks at Disneyland Paris. If you know me, I'm a foodie, I'm a snack person, I love trying new foods and things, and I was really looking forward to that. But when I was doing my research before going, I really didn't find a lot of unique snacks that looked really good to me. So this was the one snack I saw that looked unique, and like you can't get that anywhere else. And it was a savory snack. You can't find very many savory snacks. But yeah, so there really wasn't that many snacks, and you'll see we actually didn't eat that much that day at the parks anyway. So after that, again, we were strolling through Fantasyland at this point, and they had these cute little kind of like it's very vibes of like a German holiday market. They actually had this at both theme parks. The one in Disneyland Paris was at Fantasyland, and then the one at Walt Disney Studios was by Ratatouille. But y'all, this was probably one of the best things I ate the whole trip. And one of my favorite snacks of all time is a Belgian waffle. And when I say Belgian waffle, I mean a legit Belgian waffle. The one that's got like the crystallized sugar in it, not something that just says it's a Belgian waffle, but it's not. But they had them. So I had to get a Belgian waffle, and it was so good. Again, it was like fresh and warm, which was so nice on this hot day, or cold day, sorry. And I got salted caramel on it, and it was so good. They also had some stands that had crepes, as well as like some sandwichy kind of stuff. At this point, we made our way, again, we were just enjoying the environments. So then we went to go see the dragon. So this was kind of on our top of our list, was to go see the dragon at the castle. Everything is so dark here. Just an FYI. Dragon was very cool. It looks better in real life than in the video, but it's directly under the castle, which is very, very cool. Definitely enjoyed seeing that. At this point, we did some shopping. We went down Main Street. We just did some shopping because we were kind of making our way to Walt Disney Studios because that park closed before Disneyland Paris, so we wanted to make sure to get that out of the way. But again, I will note, I was a little disappointed in the merchandise also. They had several mugs I did want. Some of them like had a bunch of like French words on it, which I really enjoyed. Like, I like unique things, especially if I'm going to another country and another Disney park. I want something that has French on it or has something specifically from that park. And I don't feel like I found that much. There wasn't very many ears there, which is what my sister specifically asked for. We finally found one Phantom Manor ears that I knew she was gonna love, but there was not very many like Loungefly bags ears, and I feel like just shirts in general, which I feel like those are all very common things you'll find in America. But I don't know, I expected more. And this could have been the time of year that we went also, because again, they're doing a lot of construction and a lot of kind of revamping of the parks. And so we were kind of in that kind of middle period. So then we made our way to Walt Disney Studios, which again, I believe it's going to be called Disney Adventure World soon. And again, this park is going through so much construction. There's barely anything to do there. That park has several shows. I will say we did not watch any of those shows, but there were several different shows. There was like a Pixar themed area, so there was a couple kiddie Cars rides, character meet and greets again. Ratatouille was over there. We did not ride it because we have it in Florida, but that's all you could do on that side of the park. And essentially this park is kind of like a circle, but they're doing so much construction at the back. Ideally you could go from that Ratatouille area straight to the Marvel area, but you couldn't because they're doing construction, so you had to go back all the way around to go over there. So there was that Pixar area kind of to the right, and then to the left was a Marvel area, which was very, very cool. They do have the web slingers right there like they do in Disneyland, as well as several food options. And then they have a Flight Force ride, which is kind of rock and roller coaster vibes, but it's themed to Tony Stark and Captain Marvel. We did ride that and it was fun. Again, or I don't know if I said this yet, but another big difference in Disneyland Paris, their rides are so much more thrilling than any other park I've been to. This ride, again, very dark on the inside. You went upside down several times. It was just so much more thrilling, and you'll see a trend in this in a second. So we did ride that Flight Force ride, and then the only other thing to do there is Tower of Terror. That's it. That's all you could do at that park. So we went and rode Tower of Terror, and oh my God, best version of Tower of Terror ever. One, it was actually kind of scary. The little girl plays more of a part in that ride, and she was scary. But again, so much more thrilling. Like, I feel like the drop sequence was just crazier, and I love Tower of Terror. It's one of my favorite rides, and I don't get to ride it very often, so I was really happy I got to. But it was amazing. Like, I think we probably waited 15-20 minutes for this ride, and we were almost rode it again. But after that point, it was about to rain, and it did briefly rain, but we got another snack. And guess what? It was another savory snack. Got French fries and mayonnaise. I love French fries and mayonnaise. It's one of my favorite combinations, and guess what? It's a very European thing too, so it was normal there, and it made me very, very happy. Yeah, these were good. Again, another warm snack for this very cold day. It was great. So at this point, we made our way back to Disneyland Paris, because that's all we really wanted to do at the other park, and like I said, there was really nothing else to do over there. So we went back to Disneyland Paris, and again, we were like taking it slow. At this point of the day, it was probably like 6-7 o'clock, so it was almost getting dark, but it was definitely getting cooler. So then we decided to go to this Indiana Jones ride. You know, thought nothing of it. It just looked like a very basic coaster. So yeah, this Indiana Jones ride, we thought nothing of it, but it was so thrilling. It went upside down. Had no idea it was gonna do that. It just looked like this very easy child's coaster. No, it was not. So at this point, we did get some more merchandise, and again, to my what really surprised me about a lot of these rides is there was no bags to put your like merchandise or bags or your ears in on the roller coasters. So I think when we went on the Indiana Jones ride, and then later on we rode Hyperspace Mountain, I was like clenching on my bags because that's all you had to do. Like, there was nothing else you could do. So that was a big surprise to me too. So we rode this Indiana Jones ride, did a little bit of last minute shopping, and then we went to the Tomorrowland area, which was actually the first time we went there all day, and this was definitely the busy part of the park. There was the most people there, and we rode Hyperspace Mountain, which I gotta say, probably my favorite version of Space Mountain now also. So much more thrilling. The launch sequence was amazing. You went upside down at least twice on that ride, which you don't normally do that on Space Mountain, but again, had no idea. It was a really great ride. We were both sad that my dad couldn't ride it because he's a big Star Wars person. And he was gonna come originally, but then couldn't because of work. But it was great. We really, really enjoyed it. So now at this point of the day, we started to leave. I think our tiredness was finally starting to hit us, which I gotta say, I was really proud. We lasted a very long time that day. We probably left around 7, 8 o'clock. Back to the Disneyland Paris train station. We went on that same exact train that we took to come. We were the next stop off and we exited. And when we were walking to the parks in the morning, I noticed a ramen shop just next to our hotel, literally like a 2-minute walk. And I was like, you know what? It's so cold. Soup sounds great. That's what I would love to have for dinner. And we stopped at this little ramen shop. It was called Goo Pop Cafe for dinner. And we got ramen, and it was some of the best ramen I've ever had, I will say. Oh my god, this is gonna be so good. So we had the really delicious ramen. I got like a regular tonkatsu and my mom got the spicy version. I will say the employees at this restaurant were very nice. They did make it seem like you needed to have a reservation when nobody was sitting in there, but they still let us sit down and they were very nice. But that was the initial vibe that we got when we were there. I will say, I do think it's important to learn a little bit of French if you were about to go to France. You know, little things like, hey, how are you? Or can I order this? I have a reservation, or do you have a table for two? Those are a lot of simple phrases that you could learn that I think will really help you out a lot. And I do know very basic French, so I didn't have too many issues. Everyone I met in France was very nice. However, I'm always very letting them know, hey, I speak a little bit of French. I might need to speak a little bit of English as well, but I'm trying. And I think at the end of the day, a lot of French people, that's what they appreciate. So we went back to our hotel after our delicious ramen and we were out. We slept for so long. Luckily, we had nothing to do the day after except for traveling to Bordeaux. But that's when our long flight with no sleep and spending all day at Disneyland Paris got to us. So we rested and that was definitely well needed. So while I was editing this video, it ended up being a very long video. So I decided to split it into 2. So stay tuned for my part 2 of this video of our time in Bordeaux, having lots of food and drinking wine. I hope you enjoyed.